On this week's Stateline, filling up the state's food bowl with houses.
We must protect it for the long term.
But we're not inclined to support his bill.
Could marijuana cost this couple their home?
It's absolutely cruel.
And the amazing Charles Todd.
Well, I think he's one of the forgotten heroes.
Hello and welcome to Stateline. Well, the state government has its 30-year plan out for Adelaide for consultation. It envisions a city growing by 500,000 people. But in some of the state's key food-producing areas, growers are concerned the government is putting developers' interests ahead of the state's food bowls. In a moment, we'll hear from Planning Minister Paul Holloway. But first, Leah McLennan has this report.
Adelaide is surrounded by rich food and wine producing areas, but as Adelaide expands, there's fears regions such as Virginia, the Adelaide Hills and Southern Vales could be at threat.
We believe that the government now run the risk of allowing, maybe not in the next few years, but in 5, 10 years, 20 years, urban sprawl over the remaining prime agricultural and horticultural land.
Agriculture and horticulture needs to be treated much more seriously and given some sort of security of tenure for the future. Otherwise, basically, we might as well forget it.
John Harvey has been a viticulturalist and a winemaker in Willunga since the 1960s. But where he sees primary production, others see prime real estate, and he's had more than one person hoping he'll put it on the market.
There have been some approaches that have come along to us over the years, and we've resisted that. We were advised 30 years ago, I suppose, that we should cut it up into 10-acre titles. We didn't do that because we believe very strongly in agriculture and the fact that we can help feed the world.
John Harvey says he wasn't tempted to cash in on his land and has handed the business over to his sons. Jock Harvey says he's passionate about the region producing food and wine, and that doesn't mean no development, just sensible development.
We understand that the government believes that 30% of the economy is tied to new housing. Unfortunately, the housing that is planned is cheap and environmentally unsustainable housing. Unfortunately, it's affordability before sustainability.
Not far from the Harveys' property is Bowring Hill. This land is owned by the state government's Land Management Corporation. Currently, it's leased to a farmer, but there are plans to subdivide. Jock Harvey says it's an opportunity for something like high-end tourist accommodation and a golf course, but he's fearful that what they'll get is rows of cheap housing.
One of the real test cases will be the Bowring Hill subdivision. It seems the government have plans to get the population of Willunga to 30,000 so that then they can justify schools and hospitals and other facilities. We would like to see Bowring Hill as a test case for some of our ideas to be put forward.
Family First MP Robert Brokenshire has a dairy farm at Mount Compass. He says the state government's 30-year plan for Adelaide will result in more houses covering some of the state's most productive food-growing areas.
The government want to put another 500,000 people primarily into the north and south and the hills areas of Adelaide and its surrounds. We've got to look after food security. We've got to guarantee Adelaide has good quality food supply close to the central market points. And what we've been seeing now for decades with successive governments is continual urban sprawl on our very best fertile soils and also in our higher rainfall and reliable water supply areas.
Mr Brokenshire is so concerned about the future of the region, he's introducing the Willunga Basin Protection Bill into Parliament, which would set up a committee to design a plan for the region and assess any development applications. Mr Brokenshire says while the government has promised areas will be protected under the 30-year plan, he says without legislation, those promises from current Minister Paul Holloway aren't as safe as houses.
This minister, I like him. He's got good intentions, but he's not going to be there forever. None of us are as politicians, but we need food supply forever. We need to guarantee the protection of these regions for the absolute long-term haul, and that's why I'm saying another government could turn it around. It's only in the strategic plan. Cabinet decisions can steamroll that strategic plan anytime they want. It's as simple as that. A cabinet decision to change, majority in the government puts it through the parliament, and the next thing we see, thousands more homes on our best land.
But it's not just farmers in the south who are concerned about urban sprawl. Val Benithan's family has been growing fruit and vegetables for more than a century. And over the decades, she's seen many of the state's most productive areas from Campbelltown to Tea Tree Gully swallowed by housing.
It's all gone now, it's all gone under houses. We've had some of our best grain growing areas that are now covered in houses. We're now pushing the grain growers out further and further to the stage where they become marginal. And in some places, maybe a 1 in 10 year that they get a successful crop. And you can't continue to do that. So governments, I think, need to define what it is they want from agriculture.
Now, she says, the same thing is happening in the Adelaide Hills. She says it's important that prime food growing areas are protected in law, otherwise Adelaide's food security will be at risk.
We seem to think that we have this massive country and we can just sprawl ourselves all over the place. Well, maybe we're coming to a time when we have to really seriously look at how we're managing our future.
Well, thanks very much for your time. Will you support Rob Brokenshire's bill to protect the Willunga Basin?
Well, we're not inclined to support his bill because it's not, we believe, a very effective way of achieving the objective. All of us want to ensure that the area around McLaren Vale, particularly the wine growing region, is preserved. The best way we can do that, we believe, is to have a proper restraints on growth, which we can achieve through the development plan amendment to the area, but also through our 30-year plan. What we're seeking to do is to provide an alternative to urban sprawl. Unless we can achieve the objectives of the 30-year plan, which is to try and accommodate 70% or more of Adelaide's growth over the next 30 years within existing boundaries, if we can't achieve that, then we'll have more greenfield development, more urban sprawl than we would want.
Well, what does that 30-year plan specifically say about setting aside land for agriculture?
Well, it's very specific. It actually gives priority to those agricultural lands, and in fact, the McLaren Vale region, there's virtually no additional urban growth allowed for in that region. Similarly with the Barossa Valley, and most of the Virginia area is also protected. So a strong part of the 30-year plan is to preserve those key horticultural areas.
The Willunga vignerons say they haven't been consulted, and so do people in Virginia.
Well, I find that hard to believe because the plan has been out now. We've been advertising, encouraging people to put their submissions in, and there's still time. It's still, the consultation period is up until the end of September, so we'd welcome that.
What food production areas, other than the Barossa and Virginia, have you guaranteed protection from development?
Well, as I say, our key high value areas are that are adjacent to the city are the McLaren Vale area, basically the area east of the main South Road and south of
Willunga, included in that?
Oh yes, the region there. I mean, obviously you have some residential areas within the key towns like McLaren Vale and Willunga, but basically everywhere else is protected. And what we're looking at is strengthening that, as is the case in the Barossa Valley. But we would want to consult with the local council for a start. And Mr Brokenshire's bill really would basically make Onkaparinga Council irrelevant for development that happens including a whole lot of residential areas like Seaford, Port Noarlunga, Aldinga. So to that extent we really think it's not a very practical measure, even though we accept we should be protecting those prime agricultural areas in McLaren Vale.
So can you guarantee to South Australians that there still will be agricultural land, good agricultural land, available for food production well into the next century?
Oh, look, well, absolutely. Well, certainly with the 30-year plan, if the plan is accepted, then that's a key part of it, is to preserve those. And we've done that at the Virginia area, we've done that in the Barossa Valley, and we've done that down at McLaren Vale, because they're the key high-value horticultural areas. We have to protect those. But the best way we can do that is to try and achieve the objectives of the 30-year plan, which is get at least 70% of future dwellings accommodated within the existing boundaries. That won't be an easy thing to achieve. You can see the controversy over what we call brownfield development in the existing areas now. Cheltenham, Glenside are just a couple of examples that come to mind. So if we're to achieve the objectives of that, then that is the best thing we could do to take the pressure off sprawl in the outer regions.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thanks, Ian.